If there is one constant at EA, if there is one studio that has been consistently producing high-quality products that are well-regarded, it is Respawn Entertainment. Other studios have kind of fallen through the cracks, like BioWare. They haven't been at the top of their game lately, but Respawn with Titanfall, Apex Legends, and most recently with Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, they have just been one of the most renowned video game companies in this day and age, and they are a part of EA, no less. This is a studio that EA has to value because it's one of the few studios that's keeping their reputation afloat. And it is good to see, according to recent reports, that Respawn and its boss, Vince Zampella, are having a bigger influence within EA. So the following information was relayed by the Los Angeles Times. This is an exclusive story right here where they talk about Vince Zampella taking over a new studio at EA called DICE LA. So if we scroll down here, you'll find the details relayed by this article. So this excerpt reads, earlier in 2019, Zampella predicted that Fallen Order, under the direction of Stig Asmussen, God of War 3, probably butcher that pronunciation, would begin to remold Respawn developers, long typecast as multiplayer shooter guys, into interactive storytellers. Now he's ready to look beyond Respawn, the studio he founded in 2010 with Jason West, which was acquired in 2017 by Electronic Arts. In 2020, Zampella will also lead the LA-based offices of another Electronic Arts-owned studio, DICE. DICE was founded in Stockholm in the early 1990s and is home to games such as Battlefield, Mirror's Edge, and Star Wars Battlefront. But Electronic Arts characterizes its LA-based outpost as long dedicated to support for DICE's core products. So it's important to make that distinction between DICE and DICE LA. DICE is the core studio proper, whereas DICE LA is a division of DICE meant to act as a support developer for the core development studio. But that is no longer going to be the case. DICE LA is going to be rebranded and turned into its own core studio that Zampella is going to be spearheading. So this reads, under Zampella, there are plans to expand and launch an original, as yet unrevealed game. The company will remain separate from Respawn and, Zampella says, likely will drop the DICE name. And then Zampella was quoted with the following statement, we will probably rebrand. We want to give it a new image. We want people to say this is a destination you can go and make new content. I think they've kind of gotten the branding that they're the support studio for DICE Stockholm. I think rebranding is important for showing people, hey, come work here. We're going to do something amazing. So rebranding is definitely a good idea. DICE LA has been known for so long as a support studio that it's just not going to attract as much great talent because people will think that if you go to DICE LA, you're not going to be working on a unique product. You're just going to be supporting other projects out there. But with the rebranding of DICE LA and with it being made clear that this is its own studio now that's going to work on its own brand new games and new creative endeavors, that's going to make a lot of the talent out there see this new studio spearheaded by Vin Zampella as a great prospect for pursuing creative endeavors. Attracting talent is such an important part of any game studio, and this rebranding, I think, will go a long way with that. Zampella, I think, has the right idea there. Moving on, we have a quote from Laura Meal, who is Electronic Arts Chief Studios Officer. She's an EA executive who chimed in with the following statement. I think under Vince's leadership, the expectation is to have them work on and create a game on their own. And I genuinely believe that he's going to help guide them creatively. He's going to help them further fortify and build out their talent and their team. I think we're going to have a really strong studio out of our Los Angeles location. They can go from a support team to a full standalone studio to create a new game offering. Now, one of my main concerns is that EA is going to interfere somehow with this new studio and start getting their hands in there and mandating certain things that may degrade the gameplay experience of whatever this studio might be working on. But then again, Respawn seems to have a lot of influence within EA. They seem to have more autonomy than other studios within the notorious publisher. Seemingly, EA had very little hand in Apex Legends, and with Jedi Fallen Order having no microtransactions whatsoever, it definitely feels like a game where the developers got a lot of creative freedom with very little interference. So maybe that's something we can expect with the rebranded DICE LA as well, one can hope. History has shown time and again that whenever EA just lets developers do their thing, they create some awesome products that are driven by the pursuit of giving players a fun, immersive experience. The second that corporate influence seeps in is when you can feel these games' potential degrading, and that's one thing I hope won't happen here. I hope Vince Zampella can stave off that kind of corporate influence. As for what Zampella's new responsibilities with this rebranded DICE LA means for his role at Respawn, here's how LA Times detailed that. Zampella speaks of his role there now as more of a head coach. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order leader Asmussen will continue to direct a narrative-driven branch at Respawn. The ongoing Apex Legends is overseen by Chad Grenier. The virtual reality Medal of Honor Above and Beyond is being spearheaded by Peter Hirschman. So he's delegating essentially, but he is still the boss man at Respawn. He's the overseer and isn't giving that up to pursue new endeavors at DICE LA. He just has more on his plate now. Now here's an interesting bit from this article. Asmussen, who led Jedi Fallen Order and who is leading the narrative-driven branch of Respawn, was asked about this notion that single-player games are dying, that they're no longer relevant, that people don't play them as much anymore, that there is not as big of a demand for them. This is a notion that EA in large part kickstarted, and he had something to say about that. Asmussen said the following: in 2014, I don't think we were talking about single-player action-adventure games being an endangered species. That's something that happened while we were working on the game. There was a rise in game experiences that were service-based and people could continue playing over and over. But we stuck to our guns. This is the type of game we were going to make. I think what happened is live service games expanded the market, but they weren't taking away the players who wanted to play a single-player action-adventure. Thank you. That is 100% correct. Not to say that live service type games don't have a huge market out there, but this notion that they've taken a piece of the single player pie is ridiculous. Both can coexist. The only reason EA put out this propaganda that single player games are dying out is because in their ideal future, all games are live services, because live services are so much more monetizable than these one-off single player games. They want any excuse to be able to move all of their projects into a live service format, but that's just not what gamers want, because there is such a huge demand for single player games. I mean, just look at what happened with Witcher 3 recently. This game that is 4 years old now saw an incredible resurgence after the Netflix show came out, after that show's success. And that wasn't just because of the Netflix show, it's also because Witcher 3 was such a special single player experience. Word has spread about what a great game that is, and people were inclined to either play it again, or new people who might have heard about the Witcher games, who have heard about how awesome they are, were also inclined to maybe give it a go. And so Witcher 3 had its highest concurrent players on Steam recently, 4 years after launch, over 100,000, whereas previously it had peaked at like 70-something thousand players. And it's not just Witcher 3 that proves that. EA sort of disproved themselves when Jedi Fallen Order broke records in terms of digital sales on PC, and when it ended up being #2 best-selling game on November. And this is despite facing off against giants like Call of Duty and Pokemon Sword and Shield. So that's damn good performance. And I can only surmise that with the positive impression Jedi Fallen Order garnered, the sequel is going to garner even more attention, and that positivity is going to build, and the series is going to grow, and potential sales are going to increase. Everyone wins. One last topic that Los Angeles Times article talked about was about this notion that Respawn had given up their independence by joining up with EA. So it reads right here that they asked about giving up Respawn's independent status to sell to Electronic Arts. The article also pointed out that Zampella back in 2010 talked about, quote, the creative importance of maintaining some self-sufficiency from corporate overlords. In response to the LA Times inquiry, he said, "Did I give up my independence? Hold on, this is new news." And then he continued, "For a small studio to do as much as I want to do, it made sense for us to join forces with EA. In talking to EA, they wanted wanted the influence of me coming in to help shape the future of EA. The industry is changing, and we have the chance to be at the forefront of that. Being able to take on new challenges like DICE LA falling under me now is exciting. I want to challenge myself. I want to do something bigger and funner. Now, Vin Giorgio is in the unique position of having a lot of influence at EA, more so than other creative leads under EA's umbrella. So this was something that Jason Schreier constantly relayed throughout this year, and a lot of you may know that Jason has a lot of insider knowledge when it comes to the games industry. So this is from back in April 4th, 2019. Jason Schreier tweeted, "After Apex, Vince Zampella has a ton of leverage at EA. If their Star Wars game built on Unreal is also a big success, I can absolutely see them being able to resist pressure from EA to use Frostbite, especially with Patrick Soderlund gone." We know now, of course, that Jedi Fallen Order was, in fact, a huge success, so that's going to give Vince Zampella all the more influence, and this is especially apparent now that we know that EA is giving him the keys to a brand new studio, this rebranded DICE LA. Jason then tweeted something similar a few months later on November 15th, 2019, when he said, quote, "Respawn has unique leverage within EA's corporate structure thanks to its success with Apex Legends and the cloud of bossman Vince Zampella, but I still hope the success of Jedi Fallen Order on the Unreal Engine loosens up EA's insistence that Frostbite be used for everything." Frostbite being a huge crux of BioWare titles, because Frostbite just wasn't equipped to build the kinds of games BioWare wants to make. They had to repurpose that engine, and it was this Frankenstein of an effort that resulted in games that were not stable, that were lacking in polish. So the hope is that this loosening up on the insistence that Frostbite be used for games doesn't just apply to Respawn and Vince Zampella's endeavors, but to EA developers and studios across the board. But the point I'm trying to make is that Vince Zampella is in a more unique position than other EA creative leads, because he has more of that influence due to Apex Legends' success. And right here, he talked about how he was brought in to shape the future of EA. It would seem as though EA is placing more and more responsibility on Vince Zampella, and if this is indeed the case, I think that could be a very good thing and a smart move on EA's part if their intention is to improve goodwill among consumers and the quality of their products. The only way EA is going to change is if that change happens from within. So if Vince Zampella can remain committed to this pursuit of just creating great games, and if he can make his way up the ladder of EA and find ways to steer the EA ship towards a more ideal direction, that I think could be awesome. I think Vince Zampella has the right sensibilities when it comes to what both gamers and game developers are looking for in this industry. So he, I think, has the biggest chance of enacting a lot of positive changes from within EA, from within the belly of the beast. So here's hoping this is a trend that continues. And this is a sentiment expressed by many people. So here's a tweet by Ryan McGaffrey from IGN, whose tweet I think perfectly summarizes my sentiments. He said, "Good. Give Vince control over more things at EA and stay the hell out of his way. His track record, Medal of Honor, Call of Duty, Titanfall, Apex Legends, Jedi Fallen Order, suggests he should be overseeing as much non-sports stuff as possible at EA." Couldn't have put it better myself. Any kind of future where Vince Zampella can have a greater role in overseeing a lot of these EA IPs that have gone downhill because of EA's mishandling and their corporate mandates, any future in which Vince Zampella can kind of have an influence in righting those wrongs is a positive one in my book. Who knows what the future holds for EA, but for now, I think it's worth celebrating someone with a track record like Vince Zampella's having more creative influence at a company like EA. Anyway, I've said all there is to say about the matter. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are about Vince Zampella taking over a rebranded DICE LA. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.